Pokemon games are quite the hot commodity these days. When you look at the prices of the older games on the aftermarket, it's not uncommon to see prices well into the hundreds. These games are highly beloved and highly sought after, while also being out of print for quite some time. While no one in their right mind should pay these prices for these games, you can still technically buy them. You can exchange money for a legit physical copy of the game. But this sadly can't be said for every Pokemon game. For some, the boat to own them legitimately has long since sailed. For the first few generations of Pokemon, everything was fine and dandy, due to everything releasing physically. However, once Generation 4 came around, this would start to change due to the rise of digital storefronts. With these online stores came games exclusive to them. No longer does every game have to release physically, and Nintendo was big on this with WiiWare, which were games and applications exclusive to the Wii Shop. This would be where we would see our first ever Pokemon games released exclusively digitally. Up first is My Pokemon Ranch, a Pokemon storage game much like Pokemon Box, but with the ability to show your Pokemon walking around a ranch. Not really a whole lot of game here, but it is fun to have running as a background kind of thing. Not only was this game exclusive to the Wii Shop, but there was an update to include Platinum content that was released only in Japan, so there's an even more niche version of it out there. The second WiiWare Pokemon game would be Pokemon Rumble, a simple game where you play as Pokemon toys, with models strikingly similar to that of Ranch. This game contained only Gen 1 and Gen 4 Pokemon, and would actually spawn multiple sequels, but this one, the original, was never brought to any physical mediums. The final WiiWare Pokemon game is a Mystery Dungeon game. Well, technically, a set of 3 Mystery Dungeon games. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Keep Going Blazing Adventure Squad, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Let's Go Stormy Adventure Squad, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Go For It Light Adventure Squad. These games, known collectively as the Adventure Squad series, were only ever released in Japan. These games are seemingly far simpler than the average Mystery Dungeon entry. However, if you owned multiple versions, you could apparently use your save file across the different games to get access to different Pokemon available in each version. I don't have a whole lot I can say on this as I've never played them and I can't read Japanese. And this covers the WiiWare era of Pokemon. 3 different entries, all being just a small addition to the greater franchise, but have all left their mark in their own ways. The downside of being WiiWare is that they were exclusive to the Wii Shop, and on January 31st, 2019, we unfortunately lost the Wii Shop. If you did not already own these games prior to this date, you are now unable to buy them. You'd hope that maybe this was a one-off scenario, that this is the only time we would lose games thanks to a digital store closure. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. March 27th, 2023 saw the closure of both the 3DS and Wii U eShops, and these ones were a bit more brutal. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Doing so really does help out the channel, and it is greatly appreciated. For the Wii U, there is only one original game exclusive to its eShop, and that was Pokemon Rumble U. Yeah, another Rumble game. This subseries gets thrown around a bit. I don't have much else to say for this game, aside from the fact that it had its own physical merchandise in the NFC figures. The Amiibo before Amiibo. You could get these in blind bags and they'd give you a toy Pokemon corresponding to the figure. Very brief for the Wii U, I know, but we will be back. For now, we will move on to the 3DS eShop exclusives. The 3DS had a wide array of games exclusive to its eShop, and the first 2 we will talk about are a bit more special as they were actually delisted before the closure. The Thieves in the 1000 Pokemon was a Japanese exclusive free title on the eShop that released to coincide with the release of Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. It was only available from June 5th to September 30th in 2014. Not a whole lot of time. This game appears to make a lot of use of the 3DS's Street Pass and Playcoin features, something that sounds like it'd be quite fun in the system's heyday. The other title that was delisted before the eShop closure was Pokédex 3D. This was a free application that was a 3D Pokédex of all the Generation 5 Pokemon, which was the newest generation at the time. You could get a few entries a day and slowly complete your Pokédex. This game lasted just over a year on the eShop, and its removal came at the arrival of a new app, Pokédex 3D Pro. Moving on to the ones that sank with the ship, let's start with that Pokédex 3D Pro. This was a far more advanced version of Pokédex 3D, containing every single Pokemon from the first 5 generations, with Pro being a paid application. A pretty pricey one at that, being like $15, you no longer have to slowly unlock the dex entries. This app also featured a whole ton of quizzes that you could take to really put your knowledge to the test. Pokémon Dream Radar was a game that made use of the 3DS's AR capabilities, where you could find Pokémon to acquire and send them to Black 2 and White 2. This game served as the possibly intended way to get the genies in these games, especially since it was, at the time, the only way to get the new Therian forms. The game itself is very short and sweet, just a little side thing to check in on every now and then. Pokemon Battle Traze is, unsurprisingly, a follow-up to Pokemon Traze. While the original is a DS game that released physically, this one is unfortunately digital only. I don't really have a lot to say for this one. I've never played either of the Traze games. Moving on to a Pokemon puzzle game that I actually did play, we have Pokemon Shuffle, which I believe is the first freemium game I've mentioned on this list. Around the start of Generation 6, Pokemon spin-offs slowly started to shift towards free games with microtransactions, as opposed to a singular paid experience. This was also, I believe, the first Pokemon game to release on both a Nintendo console and then on mobile devices. This point is even more interesting for this title, as while the 3DS version died alongside the eShop, the mobile version is still downloadable. It doesn't get any more updates, but it was set to have rotating events to keep all the content obtainable. Immediately into our next freemium game, we have Pokemon Picross, which is, as you may expect, a Picross game that featured Pokemon. As a big fan of Picross, this game was one of my favorite Pokemon spin-offs. The microtransactions element to it did damper it a little bit, but I still enjoyed logging my daily time into it each day. Also being Pokemon, it was more than just the puzzle system, as the puzzles you completed would give you Pokemon to add to your team and give you skills to use when in a puzzle. Detective Pikachu, Birth of a New Duo, is an interesting addition to this list, as it was the first 3 chapters of the first Detective Pikachu game, released only in Japan. Owners of this version would receive a discount on the full game, but it does really start to feel more like a paid demo than a proper game release, which is even weirder when you consider that this game had an actual demo. Speaking of demos, yes, all of 3DS demos are gone, but most were just average game demos. There was, however, 2 demos that were actually completely unique experiences, the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire demo, and the Sun and Moon demo, instead of just letting you play the openings of the games. These are actually their own little mini stories set to tease the upcoming main title releases. Not only did they do their job as advertising, but they could also send stuff to their corresponding games, including items and even special Pokemon. The Japanese Oras demo could send a Steelix with its Megastone, while the international releases could send a Glalie with its Megastone. The Sun and Moon demo, on the other hand, allowed players to send the very special and completely exclusive Battle Bond Greninja, which has the ability to transform into Ash Greninja. And that's it for the typical cases on the 3DS, but there's a few special cases that I've yet to mention. Starting off, I guess an honorable mention goes to Pokemon Rumble World, which was initially a digital-only freemium Rumble game, but later in its life got an actual full physical release, saving the Rumble series from yet another entry on this list. For titles that are actually no longer obtainable, there's the Pokemon Tretta Lab, which was an accessory you could get that would let you use discs from the Pokemon Tretta arcade game on your 3DS. Alongside this came a download code for the Pokemon Tretta Lab main system. This whole device and application only lasted about a year, and was only released in Japan. Now for the big and probably most important one, Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Transporter. These applications are very important for the main series games. Pokemon Bank was a cloud service that allowed you to store 3,000 Pokemon for about $5 a year. It let you freely move Pokemon around the Gen 6 games, and when Gen 7 came out, you could deposit your bank Pokemon into the Gen 7 titles, with the caveat that they could no longer be deposited into the Gen 6 titles. Through Bank, you could download Pokemon Transporter, which was a separate application that would allow you to transfer Pokemon from the Gen 5 games, as well as the virtual console releases of Gens 1 and 2. This here is the reason why these apps are so important. You need them to link Pokemon caught in the first 7 generations to Gen 8 and beyond. This importance is not ignored either. When the eShop closed, so did all online capabilities for the 3DS and Wii U games. The sole exception was these 2 titles, and Bank was even made free to use. So you're good to go, as long as you have them already. If you don't, you're out of luck, because while they still work, you can't download them if you haven't already. Add in that the eShop is still technically operating, solely to allow you to download updates and even re-download games you used to have, but yet they couldn't even let people still download these 2 apps for the first time. Now you may have noticed I mentioned the Virtual Console, and it kinda deserves a spot here. Virtual Console was Nintendo's method of re-releasing games from their older consoles onto their newer consoles, and many Pokemon games made it onto the Virtual Console library. The Wii had Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Puzzle League, the Wii U had Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, Pokepark Wii Pikachu's Adventure, Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team, Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team, Mystery Dungeons Explorers of Sky, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia, and Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs. The 3DS had the Pokemon Trading Card Game and Pokemon Puzzle League Challenge, as well as all Gen 1 and 2 main series titles: Red, Green, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal. This is a lot of titles, but they all technically are available physically on their original consoles. It's just nice to have them be so accessible. There was also some tweaks made to these re-releases, like updating Jinx's skin color in some of the games, or how Yellow allows you to access the Pikachu's Beach minigame without surfing Pikachu, or even how Crystal allows you to do the Celebi in-game event whenever you please. I believe that's all for the entries on the main Nintendo consoles. I guess I could mention stuff like Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity's DLC stages, but outside of stuff like that, the list is mostly done. Well, that is until you look at the mobile phone apps that have released throughout the years. There's a lot that have been made, and a lot that have been removed, and most of which I have never looked into until right now. So for the rapid fire section of this video, there is Pokémon Rumble Rush, Pokémon Say Tap, Pokémon TCG Card Decks, Pokémon Tower Battle, Pokémon TV, Pokémon Wave Hello, Camp Pokémon, Dancing, Pokémon Band, Learn Real English through Pokémon, XY Translation Scope, Pokédex for iOS, Pokémate, Pokémon Duel, Pokémon Jukebox, Pokémon Medallion Battle, Pokémon Mobile, Pokémon Photo Boom, Pokémon Playroom, and Pokémon Pass. That's a lot of mobile apps, and I'm not describing each one. Pokédex for iOS was like Pokédex 3D Pro, but you had to pay for the Gens 1 through 4 Pokédexes if I remember correctly. Pokemon TV had rotating episodes from the anime and was around for a very, very long time. Funny that there's yet another Rumble game that is just gone. And this is just the mobile games. There was games on the Pokemon websites. The big one is, of course, Pokemon Dream World, being a place to send your Pokemon in the Gen 5 games to do stuff like farm berries and find wild Pokemon to send to your main game. But outside of that, the Pokemon website had a whole slew of desktop games, such as Pokemon Tic-Tac-Toe with Celebi, Pokemon Memory Game, Who's That Pokemon, Wobbuffet's Puzzle Pack, Play to Befriend a Pokemon, Switcheroo, Tricks of a Trainer, Grassamatas, Deep Sea Diving, Tic-Tac-Toe, an unnamed Shuckle Game, Turtwig's Target Smash, Pachirisu's Click-Clack Attack, Munchlax's Berry Bonanza, Shifttree's Big Seed Fling, Chatot's Chime Time Challenges, Metacham's Bounce Bounce, Drifloon's Fill and Float, Eevee's Tile Trial, Psyduck's Shuffle Surprise, Nover's Dessert Drop, Pokemon TikTok Walk, Sableye's Gem Journey, Jumpluff Sky High Glide, Teddy Ursa's Garden Patch Match, Ghastly's Hidden Haunt, Zorua and Zoroark's Puzzle Pack, Tepig's Tasty Treat Toaster, Scraggy's Headbutt Blast, Excadrill's Tunnel Trouble, Deerling's Season Slider, Chingling's Ring Along, Magnemite's Power Pulse Puzzler, Magikarp's Ripple Reaction, Zatu's Quick Card Quiz, Emolga's Apple Adventure, Berry Barrel Blitz, Gothita's Portrait Panic, Joltik's Super Circuit, Maractus's Blooming Blossoms, Pokemon Pulse, Chestnut Spiky Shield, Floette Float, Pokemon Puzzler, Solrock and Lunatone's Waterfall Fun, Escape from Gengar's Mansion, Emolga's Treetop Roundtop, Raichu's Bolt Deflector, and Swirlix's Cotton Candy Catch. That is an astronomical amount of games, and you are never playing them officially. But we can keep going deeper. We can look towards the arcade games, which you probably aren't obtaining by yourself. And even then, and you are most likely not going to be finding most of them hanging around to be played somewhere. With this, we have stuff like Dance Pikachu, Pikachu's Great Surfing Adventure, Pokemon Batrio, Pokemon Card Game Gacha, Pokemon Koro Garena, Pokemon Friends, Pokemon Ga Ole, Pokemon Get Round and Round, Pokemon Metal World, Pokemon Mega Get, Pokemon Megastar, Pokemon Tretta, Pokemon Tug of War Tournament Absolute Get Metal, Pokemon Battle 9, Pokemon Crayon Kids, Pokemon Wobbuffet Fell Down, and Print Club Pokemon B. Hell, while we're at it, let's even mention the Pokemon Snap photo printer. Isn't it amazing just how many Pokemon games you can't just play right now? I'm absolutely positive there's way more I didn't list, because this franchise is huge and no one person is able to experience all of it. It's just impossible. But you would think that a franchise so big, one so beloved all over the world, would make greater attempts at keeping their games accessible to their fans. So many games that you can no longer buy, and ones on the aftermarket selling for way over their original MSRP that Pokemon isn't even getting a single penny from. You'd think they'd want ways to capitalize off of this, make the games available to be bought, and at reasonable prices, even just to deter fans from seeking alternative methods of obtaining them. So many unique games with unique elements left to be forgotten to the sandy gas of time. Alright, I don't think I have much else to say on this topic. Again, if you enjoyed this video, liking and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. Also, comment down below, even if it's just what your favorite now inaccessible Pokemon game is. I want to thank you all for watching. This has been Big Blast 99, and I hope you have yourselves a goddamn good one.